The chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that held the fates of 1,000 worlds. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections. Some had wings, others had scales, and a few existed as clouds of luminous gas contained in transparent chambers. They had all come to witness humanity's petition for full membership in the Galactic Council. Deho stood at the center of the chamber floor, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore a simple gray suit, refusing the elaborate ceremonial robes that other species favored. Beside him, Haijin held a datapad that contained 50 years of human achievements, contributions, and peaceful interactions with Council species. She could feel the weight of 1 billion human hopes pressing down on her shoulders. The Council head, Rental, spread his wings slightly as he examined the documents before him. His species had ruled the Council for 3,000 years, and he carried that authority in every movement. His golden eyes swept across the human delegation with something that looked uncomfortably close to amusement. "Humanity requests full membership," Rental announced, his voice carrying through the chamber without technological assistance. "We have reviewed your petition. We have examined your contributions to galactic society. We have considered your technological development and your cultural stability." Haijin felt a flutter of hope. 50 years of probationary status had been difficult, but humans had worked hard. They had shared medical advances that saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. They had developed agricultural techniques that ended famines on 7 planets. Human engineers had improved manufacturing efficiency across Council space by 30%. Surely that counted for something. "The Council has reached a decision," Rental continued. He paused, and Haijin could swear she saw the corners of his beak turn upward. "Your petition is denied." The words hit like a physical blow. Haijin's grip tightened on her datapad. Around the chamber, she heard sounds that might have been laughter from species whose humor she didn't understand. Mothrex, the insectoid counselor, clicked his mandibles together in a sound that definitely was laughter. "Humans are still too volatile," he said, his translator rendering his speech into cold, clinical tones. "Your species resorts to violence too quickly. Your emotions override your logic. You have wars among your own kind even now." "Small conflicts," Deho said quietly. "Compared to our past, we have achieved remarkable peace." "Compared to your past," Rental repeated, and now the smirk was unmistakable. "That is precisely the problem. You measure yourselves against your own primitive history rather than against civilized standards. The Council has decided to restrict human activity to mining operations in the outer territories. You may continue your probationary status, but full membership is not appropriate at this time." Another counselor, a being that resembled a floating crystal formation, added its thoughts. "Perhaps in another century or two, when you have matured as a species, we can revisit this matter." Haijin wanted to speak, to argue, to present the evidence of everything humanity had accomplished. She wanted to list every innovation, every life saved, every problem solved by human ingenuity. But Deho's hand moved slightly, a gesture they had agreed upon beforehand. It meant, "Stay silent." "We understand," Deho said. His voice remained calm, almost pleasant. "Humanity will respond accordingly." Rental's smirk widened. He interpreted Deho's words as submission, as acceptance of humanity's lesser status. "Very good. You may return to your territories. The Council has other matters to attend to." As Deho and Haijin turned to leave, more laughter rippled through the chamber. A slug-like counselor made a wet sound that its translator didn't even bother to convert. 2 reptilian representatives hissed to each other, their body language clearly mocking. The message was clear. Humanity was a joke, a species of children playing at civilization while their elders tolerated their presence. The walk back to their shuttle felt longer than it was. Haijin's hand shook with anger and humiliation. 50 years, she whispered. 50 years of work, of cooperation, of proving ourselves, and they laughed at us. They did, Daeho agreed. His face showed no emotion, but Haijin had worked with him long enough to recognize the set of his jaw. He was furious, but he kept it locked behind a wall of diplomatic control. Their shuttle lifted away from the council chamber. Through the viewport, Haijin watched the massive structure shrink against the stars. Inside that place, the council was already moving on to other business, already forgetting about the human petition. To them, it had been a minor inconvenience, a brief interruption to dismiss before lunch. What did you mean? Haijin asked. When you said humanity would respond accordingly? Daeho was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars stream past. They think they've put us in our place, he finally said. They think we'll accept this, that we'll continue to be their miners and their grateful students. They think human contributions don't matter. They're wrong, Haijin said. They are, Daeho agreed. And they're going to learn exactly how wrong. But not today. Today, we go home and we tell our people what happened. We tell them that the galaxy considers us inferior, that our achievements mean nothing, that our place is to dig in dirt on forgotten worlds while the civilized species make decisions. People are going to be angry, Haijin said. Good, Daeho replied. Anger is useful if it's directed properly. We've spent 50 years trying to fit into their system, trying to meet their standards, trying to prove we deserve a seat at their table. Maybe it's time we built our own table. The shuttle's communication system chimed. Messages were already flooding in from Earth and the colonies. News of the council's decision had spread faster than their shuttle could travel. Haijin scanned through them, reading words of anger, disappointment, and humiliation from billions of humans across hundreds of worlds. But scattered among the messages of despair were different ones. Scientists asking if they could redirect their research from council-approved projects to human-specific development. Engineers asking if they needed to keep maintaining systems on council worlds. Merchants asking if trade agreements were still binding. Military commanders asking for new orders. Daeho read over her shoulder. Forward all of those to Director Minho, he said. Tell him we need an emergency session of the Colonial Affairs Committee. And tell him I recommend we begin what we discussed. The withdrawal protocols? Haijin asked. The galaxy has made its position clear, Daeho said. We're not wanted. We're not valued. We're tolerated at best. So let's see how they do without us. Let's see how long their smirks last when they realize what humans actually contributed to their civilization. As their shuttle jumped to faster-than-light travel, beginning the long journey back to Earth, Haijin looked at the star maps displayed on her screen. Humanity controlled less than 1% of galactic territory. They had the smallest population of any spacefaring species. They were the newest, the youngest, the least experienced. But they were also the ones who had been underestimated. And Haijin suspected that would prove to be the Council's biggest mistake. The emergency session began 6 hours after Daeho's shuttle touched down on Earth. Representatives from every human colony connected through quantum communications. Their holographic images filling the vast chamber in Geneva. Minho stood at the center, his face grave as he called the meeting to order. You've all seen the Council's decision, Minho said. You've all heard their reasons. Humanity is too violent, too emotional, too immature for full membership. We are restricted to mining operations and probationary status. He paused, letting the anger in the room build. I'm here to ask you a simple question. Do we accept this? The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped, shouting in a dozen languages. Some called for military action. Others demanded economic sanctions. A few suggested humanity should grovel, should try again, should prove themselves worthy. But the majority simply roared their rejection of the council's judgment. Minho let them vent for exactly 3 minutes, then raised his hand. Silence fell gradually, like a wave receding from shore. I asked Director Deho to prepare a report, Minho said. Something we've been quietly working on for the past 5 years, in case this day came. Haijin, if you would? Haijin's hologram stepped forward. She looked tired from the journey, but her voice was clear and strong. For the past 5 years, we've been documenting every human contribution to Council Society. Not for pride or for negotiation leverage, but because we needed to know what we actually provided. She activated a display that filled the air above the assembled representatives. Lists scrolled past, thousands of entries long. Medical innovations, agricultural techniques, manufacturing processes, computational algorithms, material science breakthroughs, infrastructure designs, educational methodologies. The list seemed endless. These are things we developed and shared freely with Council species, Haijin continued. We did it because we believed cooperation benefited everyone. We did it because we wanted to be good galactic citizens. But now we know the truth. The Council thinks these contributions are worthless. They think we're primitive children playing with toys. So we stopped playing, Suji said. The Chief of Defense Forces stood from her seat, her expression hard. We withdraw every human currently serving in Council space. Every engineer maintaining their systems. Every doctor treating their patients. Every teacher in their schools. Every technician keeping their infrastructure running. We bring them all home. That's thousands of people, someone objected. Contracts worth billions. Relationships built over decades. Relationships? Suji's laugh was bitter. They laughed at us. They smirked while denying us basic recognition. Those aren't relationships. Those are transactions, and we're ending them. Minho nodded slowly. I want to vote. All in favor of immediate withdrawal from Council space? The vote was nearly unanimous. Only a handful of representatives abstained, and none voted against. Humanity had made its decision. The withdrawal began within 24 hours. It was organized with military precision, coordinated across hundreds of worlds. Human merchants terminated their contracts and began loading their ships. Engineers submitted their resignations and booked passage home. Doctors finished their current treatments and packed their equipment. Teachers said goodbye to their students and left behind empty classrooms. At first, the Council barely noticed. Individual humans leaving individual positions seemed like random fluctuations, nothing to be concerned about. A factory manager on the industrial world of Tevix resigned. Someone else would fill the position. The agricultural consultant on the farming moon of Brevin 2 went home. The locals could handle it themselves, but as weeks passed, the pattern became impossible to ignore. On Tevix, productivity dropped 15% within a month. The new manager couldn't figure out why the assembly lines kept jamming until someone realized the human had been adjusting tolerances every morning based on temperature and humidity readings. No one else had known to do that. On Brevin 2, the next harvest was projected to be 30% smaller than usual. The human consultant had been optimizing nutrient delivery based on daily soil analysis. Without those adjustments, the crops grew poorly. A plague broke out on the water world of Akis Prime. It was a minor thing, easily treatable. Except the human doctor who had set up their rapid vaccine synthesis protocols had left 2 weeks earlier. Without her expertise, it took the local medical staff 6 weeks to produce a vaccine instead of 6 hours. Hundreds died unnecessarily. SUJI recalled every human military observer from Council peacekeeping operations. She did it quietly, without announcement, simply issuing orders for personnel to return home. Within months, 3 separate council peacekeeping missions collapsed into chaos. Turns out the human advisors had been doing more than just observing. They had been coordinating logistics, mediating disputes, and providing strategic analysis that kept fragile truces intact. G1 stood in her laboratory on Earth, watching as classified research projects accelerated. For 50 years, human scientists had been required to submit their most advanced work for council review. The council called it cooperation. Humans called it mandatory technology sharing. Now, without council oversight, research moved faster than ever before. We're 6 months ahead of schedule on the quantum drive project, one of her assistants reported. Without having to document everything for council review, we've cut development time in half. Good, G1 said. What about the dimensional shielding? Ready for testing. The council kept rejecting our proposals, said the math didn't work. Turns out the math works fine when we're not trying to explain it to species who learned physics 3,000 years ago and stopped innovating. Back in council space, problems multiplied. A space station lost artificial gravity for 6 hours because the human engineer who maintained the generator had left. The replacement couldn't figure out the human-designed redundancy system. A communications network spanning 15 worlds crashed and took 3 days to restore. The human technician, who had been monitoring it, would have fixed it in 3 hours. Mothrex brought the matter before the council. The human withdrawal is causing disruptions, he admitted, though his pride made the words difficult. Perhaps we should reach out to them, offer incentives for them to return. Rental ruffled his feathers dismissively. We survived for millennia before humans arrived. We'll adapt. This is merely an adjustment period. But privately, some counselors were less certain. Crow, a reptilian representative known for careful observation, compiled a classified report. He documented every system failure, every productivity drop, every efficiency loss that could be traced to human withdrawal. The numbers were stark. Across council space, economic output had declined by 12%. Medical response times had increased by 40%. Infrastructure maintenance costs had doubled. He presented his report to the inner circle of council leadership. We may have made an error, he said carefully. Human contributions were more significant than we realized. Nonsense, Rental said, but his voice lacked conviction. We simply need time to reorganize, to redistribute their responsibilities among more qualified species. Messages began arriving from council space to human colonies. Carefully worded requests for temporary assistance. Offers of fair compensation for consulting work. Suggestions that perhaps some humans would like to return to their previous positions. With improved benefits, of course. Minho read each message personally. Then he composed a single response that would be sent to every inquiry. Humanity appreciates the offers, but we are currently focused on internal development per the Council's recommendation. We're sure your member species can assist each other with any temporary difficulties. Best wishes for your adaptation period. It was polite. It was professional. It was also completely final. Daeho met with Minho in a private office overlooking Lake Geneva. They're starting to understand, Daeho said. The messages are becoming more frequent, more desperate, though they try to hide it. Let them understand, Minho replied. Let them see what they took for granted. We spent 50 years building their systems, improving their efficiency, solving their problems. And they thanked us with mockery and restrictions. Some people are asking when we'll help them, Daeho said. They say we're being petty, that we're punishing innocent civilians for their leaders' decisions. Minho's expression hardened. We're not punishing anyone. We're simply focusing on our own development, exactly as the Council suggested. They said we weren't ready for full partnership. Fine. We'll work on ourselves until we are. If that causes them inconvenience, well, Perhaps they should have valued us when they had the chance. Through the window, Earth gleamed in the afternoon sun. Somewhere above, in orbital shipyards, human engineers were building vessels with technology the Council had never seen. In laboratories across the planet, scientists were making breakthroughs that would reshape warfare, medicine, and transportation. In training facilities, soldiers prepared for threats the Council didn't know existed. Humanity was no longer trying to fit into the galaxy's existing structure. They were building something new, something better, something entirely their own, and the galaxy was about to learn what they had lost. 12 months after the withdrawal began, the Council could no longer pretend everything was fine. The problems had multiplied from inconveniences into crises, from isolated incidents into systemic failures. And everyone knew why, even if they were reluctant to say it out loud. Tae-jun had been one of the last humans to leave Council space. As an agricultural consultant, he had spent 15 years on the farming world of Harvest Station, teaching local farmers how to maximize their yields. When he received his recall orders, he had spent 2 weeks training his replacement, a conscientious insectoid farmer who took careful notes and asked good questions. Now, 6 months later, Tae-jun sat in his office on Earth's agricultural research station, reviewing reports from Harvest Station. The yields had dropped 35%. The soil was becoming depleted. Crop diseases were spreading. His former replacement had sent 3 desperate messages asking for help, but Tae-jun had forwarded them all to Minho with a simple note, following official withdrawal protocols. Yuna's story was similar. She had developed a rapid vaccine synthesis method that revolutionized disease response across 24 Council worlds. When she left, she had provided detailed documentation and training, but the method required constant adaptation, tweaking variables based on mutation rates and environmental factors. Without her expertise, it took Council medical staff weeks to produce vaccines that Yuna could have created in hours. 3 plagues had erupted across Council space in the past year. All 3 were treatable. All 3 had killed thousands unnecessarily while local doctors struggled with Yuna's equipment. Trying to remember her training while patients died in waiting rooms, a galactic news service had interviewed both Tae-jun and Yuna, asking why they wouldn't help. Their answers had been identical. We're working on humanity-specific projects now. The Council suggested we focus on developing our own civilization. We're following their advice. The news interviews had been watched by billions across the galaxy. Some species saw arrogant humans refusing to help. Others saw the natural consequences of the Council's dismissal. But everyone agreed on one thing. The situation was deteriorating. Krell brought another report to the Council, this one far more detailed than his first. He had spent months documenting every failure, every loss, every consequence of humanity's withdrawal. The statistics were devastating. Economic output across Council space has declined by 18%. Krell reported, his reptilian eyes cold and analytical. Medical response times have increased by 60%. Infrastructure maintenance costs have tripled. Manufacturing efficiency is down 28%. Agricultural yields are down 32% on worlds that relied on human consultation. Rental shifted uncomfortably on his perch. These are temporary setbacks. We are adapting, are we? Krell's voice was sharp. I have reports of 12 species requesting emergency economic assistance. 4 worlds facing famine. 7 medical crises that could have been prevented. And every single problem can be traced directly to human withdrawal. Mothrex clicked his mandibles defensively. We cannot show weakness by begging humans to return. Our pride is killing our citizens, Krell interrupted. I've compiled a list of human contributions we thought were minor. Every innovation, every technique, every system they built or improved. Do you know what I found? Humans were integrated into almost every critical system in Council space. Not because they sought control, but because they were helpful and competent. And we let them help because it made our lives easier. He activated a display that filled the chamber. The sheer volume of data was staggering. Medical protocols, agricultural systems, manufacturing processes, infrastructure maintenance procedures, communication networks, transportation logistics, educational curricula, energy distribution grids, waste management systems, air filtration designs, water purification techniques. They didn't just contribute, Krell said. They became the foundation of our modern efficiency. And we never noticed because it all worked smoothly. We never questioned why factories ran better, why hospitals saved more lives, why farms produced more food. We just accepted it and assumed it was our own advancement. The chamber was silent. For the first time, counselors were confronting the full scope of their mistake. We should reach out to them, one counselor suggested. Offer them full membership immediately. Apologize for our error. We already tried, Rental admitted quietly. 3 times. We sent official requests for temporary assistance, offering generous compensation. Their response was polite but absolute. They're focusing on internal development, as we suggested. Then we demand they help, Mothrex said. We invoke the emergency aid protocols. They are still under council jurisdiction for... They are not, Krell interrupted. I checked. When they withdrew, they formally terminated their probationary status. They are now an independent political entity. We have no authority over them. Another counselor spoke up. What about their trade agreements? Their mining operations in our space? All terminated, Krell said. They gave proper notice, fulfilled their contractual obligations, and left. Legally, we have no claim on them. Rental finally asked the question everyone was avoiding. What are they doing? Our intelligence reports say their space is virtually sealed. Very few outsiders are allowed in. Trade has stopped. Communication is minimal. What are they building in there? Krell pulled up another report, this one marked with the highest security classification. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures in human space. Very advanced technology. Weapons testing, we think. Shield generators far more powerful than anything we possess. Ship designs that don't match any known configuration. They're not just focusing on internal development. They're advancing rapidly, and they're doing it without sharing any data with us. The implications sank in slowly. For 50 years, humans had shared every innovation with the Council. Every breakthrough had been documented, explained, and freely given. The Council had become accustomed to that generosity, had started to expect it. Now, human research was hidden behind closed borders, and the Council had no idea what they were developing. We need them back, Rental said finally. Not just for practical reasons. If they continue advancing in isolation, if they develop weapons and technology we can't counter, they could become a threat. They're not a threat, Krell said. They're a consequence. We judged them unworthy. We laughed at them. We told them they were too primitive for our Council. And they accepted our judgment. They left peacefully, fulfilled all their obligations, and wished us well. They're not preparing for war. They're just done helping us. Then how do we fix this? Mothrex asked. For the first time, his voice held no pride, no arrogance. Only fear. I don't know if we can, Krell admitted. But we need to try. Because in 6 months, Harvest Station will face genuine famine. In 8 months, the plague on Akis Prime will overwhelm their medical system. In 10 months, the manufacturing collapse on Tevix will cause economic catastrophe. We are watching our civilization slowly break down, system by system, and we have no one to blame but ourselves. Rental stood, his wings spreading to their full width. Draft a formal apology. Request a diplomatic meeting. Offer full membership immediately, with no probationary period. Offer anything they want, and if they refuse, someone asked. Then we learn to survive on our own, Rental said, as we should have been doing all along. But I suspect that lesson will be far more painful than any of us imagine. The message was sent to Earth within hours. It was humble, apologetic, and desperate. It acknowledged the Council's error and humanity's value. It offered everything the Council had previously denied. On Earth, Minho read the message carefully. Then he filed it away and returned to his work. The Council would have to wait. Humanity was busy building their own future, and for the first time in 50 years, they were doing it on their own terms. The galaxy was beginning to understand what it had lost. Soon, it would understand what humanity had become in their absence. 20 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy discovered it had bigger problems than wounded pride and failing infrastructure. The threat arrived from beyond the galactic rim, and it came hungry. Jian Wu's single quotes S stealth reconnaissance fleet detected them first. He was patrolling the edge of human space, testing new sensor arrays, when his instruments picked up something impossible. A fleet of organic vessels, thousands strong, moving through the void like a swarm of insects. They consumed everything in their path. Asteroids, debris, small moons, even the thin hydrogen gas between stars. They ate, they grew, and they multiplied. Get me a full analysis, Jianwu ordered his science team. I want to know what we're looking at. The data came back within hours, and it was terrifying. The ships were alive, biological constructs that harvested matter and converted it into more ships. They had no communications, no discernible command structure, just a collective hunger that drove them forward. And they were heading toward the populated regions of the galaxy. Jian Wu sent an encrypted report back to Earth. Within 6 hours, it was on Minho's desk. Within 12, every human military commander in the fleet was reading it. Within 24, Suji was standing before the Human Defense Council with a grim assessment. We're calling them Devourers, Suji said, displaying images of the organic ships. They looked like massive insects crossed with deep-sea creatures, all chitin plates and grinding mouthparts. They're extragalactic, probably from the space between galaxies. They strip mine everything they encounter, and they're heading straight for Council space. What's their military capability? Someone asked. Unknown, but we can make educated guesses. They're designed for resource extraction, but anything that can tear apart asteroids can probably tear apart ships. They're numerous, they're fast, and they appear to have no fear or self-preservation instinct. They're drones, but biological ones. How long until they reach Council space? Minho asked. 6 months until they hit the outer colonies. 9 months until they reach core Council worlds. If their current consumption rate holds, they could strip entire solar systems clean within weeks. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The Council was already struggling with basic infrastructure maintenance. They were in no condition to face an existential threat. Have we received any communication from the Council about this? Minho asked. Not yet, Suji said. Our stealth ships are more advanced than Council sensors. They probably don't even know the Devourers exist yet. Then we wait, Minho said. We continue our surveillance. We develop countermeasures. And we see if the Council notices before it's too late. 3 weeks later, the Council detected the Devourers. Their long-range outposts sent back panicked reports of organic ships consuming mining stations and small colonies. The Council fleet mobilized, sending their peacekeeping forces to engage the threat. The battle was a disaster. Council ships used traditional energy weapons that burned through Devourer flesh but didn't stop them. The organic vessels just regrew damaged sections and kept coming. Council tactics relied on formations and coordinated strikes, but the Devourers swarmed like locusts, overwhelming defensive positions through sheer numbers. After 3 major engagements, the Council had lost 40% of its peacekeeping fleet. The Devourers had lost nothing that mattered. Every ship destroyed was replaced by 2 more grown from consumed debris. Krell brought the catastrophic news to an emergency council session. "We're losing," he said bluntly. "Our weapons barely slow them down. Our tactics don't work against an enemy that doesn't care about casualties. And they're multiplying faster than we can destroy them. We need to retreat to core worlds," Vrental said. "Consolidate our defenses and abandon the outer colonies?" Mothrex demanded. "Billions of civilians? We cannot defend them," Vrental said. "We barely have enough ships to defend ourselves." "Then we contact the humans," Krell said. Every eye turned to him. "We sent them a diplomatic apology 6 months ago. They never responded. But this isn't about pride anymore. This is about survival. We need their help." "They won't help," Mothrex said bitterly. "Why would they? We treated them as inferiors. We laughed at them. They have no reason to risk their lives for us." "Then we offer them whatever they want," Krell said. "Full membership, territory, technology, money, anything. Because if the Devourers aren't stopped, there won't be a council left to have pride." Vrental hesitated, then nodded. "Send the message?" "Mark it as a priority distress call." The message reached Earth within hours. Minho convened an emergency meeting of human leadership. The debate was fierce and immediate. "Let them face the consequences," one admiral argued. "They made their choice when they rejected us." "Billions of innocent people will die," Hyjin countered. "Children who never voted against us. Families who never laughed at our delegation. We can't let them die to punish their leaders, can't we?" The admiral's voice was hard. "How many humans died in colonies they refused to defend? How many human innovations did they take for granted? We owe them nothing." Suji stood, commanding immediate attention. "I've reviewed our intelligence on the Devourers. If they consume council space, they won't stop there. They'll keep spreading, keep eating until they reach us. This isn't about helping the council. This is about stopping an existential threat while we still can. What are our capabilities?" Minho asked. Suji pulled up tactical displays. "We've spent 20 months developing weapons specifically designed to counter biological threats. Quantum disruptors that prevent cellular regeneration. Viral agents that target their growth mechanisms. Energy shields that adapt to biological attack patterns. We've been preparing for threats the Council never imagined." Jiwon added her analysis. "My research team has developed a biological counteragent. It disrupts the Devourer's reproductive cycle and prevents them from converting matter into new ships. If we can deploy it across their fleet, we could stop their multiplication." Daeho spoke quietly, but everyone listened. "We have a choice. We can stay safe behind our borders and watch the galaxy burn. Or we can help, knowing the Council doesn't deserve it, knowing they wouldn't do the same for us. The question is, what kind of species do we want to be?" The debate raged for hours. Some argued for revenge, others for mercy. Some wanted guarantees from the Council, others wanted to help unconditionally. But gradually, consensus emerged. Minho called for a vote. All in favor of military intervention to stop the Devourers? The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would help. Not because the Council deserved it, but because it was the right thing to do. SORI, the Quantum Communications Director, sent a message to the Council. It was brief and clear. Humanity will assist. Deploy your remaining forces to the Centrum Line. Human fleets will arrive in 5 days. We'll discuss our future relationship after the threat is neutralized." The response from the Council came within minutes. Gratitude, relief, and barely hidden shock. They had been preparing for refusal, for abandonment, for watching their civilization crumble. They hadn't expected humanity to help. "Prepare the fleets," Suji ordered. "Full mobilization. We're going to war." Across human space, ships powered up. Weapon systems activated. Soldiers boarded transports. The fleet that emerged from human territory was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Sleek ships with quantum drives. Weapons that bent space itself. Shields that shimmered with adaptive energy. Jiangwu took command of the reconnaissance division, his stealth ships moving ahead to scout Devourer positions. He had spent months studying these creatures, learning their patterns, finding their weaknesses. Now he would put that knowledge to use as the human fleet jumped toward the Centrum Line where the Council was making its last stand. Haijin stood on the bridge of the command ship and watched the stars blur past. She thought about the Council's smirk 20 months ago. She thought about their laughter, their dismissal, their cruelty, and she thought about humanity's choice to help them anyway. Because being better than your enemies wasn't about revenge. It was about choosing mercy even when it wasn't deserved. That was what made humanity strong. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had become. And it would learn it on a battlefield where human blood would be spilled defending species who had mocked them. That was the lesson humanity would teach. Strength without cruelty. Power without arrogance. And mercy even for those who showed none. The Centrum Line was chaos when the human fleet arrived. Council ships formed desperate defensive positions around 3 inhabited worlds, their formations ragged and their crews exhausted. The Devourers swarmed like locusts, their organic hulls reflecting the light of burning wreckage. Thousands of Council civilians were being evacuated, but there weren't enough ships. Weren't enough time. Admiral Yunji's command ship emerged from quantum space at the head of humanity's first fleet. She was 48 years old, had never lost a major engagement, and had spent the past 20 months studying every piece of data Jianwu's scouts had collected on the Devourers. She knew their patterns, their weaknesses, and exactly how to kill them. "This is Admiral Yunji of the Human Defense Forces to all Council vessels," she broadcast on all frequencies. "I'm taking tactical command of the combined fleet. All ships will follow my orders immediately." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then a Council Admiral responded, his voice tight with desperation and pride. "Human fleet, we appreciate your assistance, but Council forces remain under Council command. Look at your tactical display," Yunji interrupted. "You've lost 60% of your ships in the past week. Your formations are breaking down. Your defensive line will collapse within 4 hours. I'm not asking for command. I'm taking it. You can object after we've won." Another pause. Then the Council Admiral's voice came back, quieter. "Command is yours, Admiral." Yunji immediately began issuing orders. Council ships repositioned into formations that seemed strange to them, but made perfect sense when combined with human tactics. Human vessels with quantum shields moved to the front lines, their adaptive defenses shimmering as Devour weapons struck them harmlessly. Behind them, Council ships provided supporting fire while human frigates deployed. G1's biological counteragent in concentrated bursts. The Devourers swarmed toward the new formation, expecting the same easy victory they'd achieved in previous battles. Instead, they ran into a coordinated defense unlike anything they'd encountered. Human quantum disruptors fired in precise patterns, targeting the cellular structures that allowed Devourers to regenerate. When the organic ships tried to repair themselves, they found their cells simply falling apart. Deploy the viral agent, Yunji ordered. Pattern Delta across the northern quadrant. Specialized human ships launched missiles that exploded in clouds of engineered particles. The particles drifted through the Devourer swarm, infiltrating their biological systems. Within minutes, affected Devourers began to slow, their reproduction cycles disrupted, their growth patterns failing, but there were so many of them. For every Devourer destroyed, 3 more pushed forward. The battle became a grinding war of attrition. Humans and Council forces holding the line while civilians evacuated behind. Them, Jiamu's reconnaissance division identified. The largest concentration of Devourers and transmitted the coordinates to Yunji. That's their main mass, he reported. Take it out and you'll disrupt their coordination. All human battleships, focus fire on coordinate 774 Mark 12, Yunji ordered. Council ships maintain defensive positions. Don't break formation. Humanity's largest warships fired simultaneously. Quantum beam weapons, far more advanced than anything the Council possessed, lanced through space. The energy didn't just destroy matter. It disrupted the fundamental forces holding it together. Where the beam struck, Devourer ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, their matter unraveling at the quantum level. The main concentration of Devourers collapsed, creating a gap in their swarm. Yunji immediately exploited it. All ships advanced through the gap. Council evacuation vessels, you have a window. Move now. The combined fleet pushed forward, human ships leading the way with their superior shields and weapons. Behind them, Council transport ships carried millions of refugees to safety. The maneuver was risky, aggressive. Exactly the kind of tactic the Council had always criticized humans for being too violent and too impulsive. But it worked. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human casualties mounted as ships positioned themselves between the Devourers and Council worlds. The destroyer Bizon took a direct hit while defending an evacuation point, her crew buying time for 3,000 Council civilians to escape. The frigate Jeju sacrificed herself to close a gap in the defensive line, ramming a cluster of Devourers while her reactor went critical. Daeho coordinated diplomatic efforts from Earth, working with Council representatives to organize refugee distribution and emergency supplies. He did it with the same calm efficiency he'd shown at the Council chamber 20 months ago. But now Council officials hung on his every word. Desperate for his expertise, Hygiene stood in the communications center, watching reports flow in from across the battle zone. She saw the human sacrifice, the lives being lost to defend species who had laughed at them. Part of her felt the bitter irony. Another part felt proud. This was what humanity chose to be, protectors. Even when protection wasn't deserved, as the Devourer swarm finally began to break apart under the sustained assault. Jiwan deployed the final phase of her counteragent. Modified particles spread through the remaining Devourers, preventing any survivors from reproducing. The organic ships began to die, their biological systems shutting down one by one. After 22 hours of continuous combat, Admiral Yunji broadcast the all-clear. The Devourer swarm is neutralized. Council worlds are secure. Begin damage assessment and casualty reports. The cost had been high. Humanity had lost 43 ships and over 12,000 personnel. Council forces had lost another 100 vessels. But 3 worlds had been saved, and billions of civilians were alive because of the combined defense. In the aftermath, the Council convened an emergency session. Every species was present, their holographic representatives filling the chamber. But this time, a human delegation sat at the center, not as petitioners but as saviors. Vrental stood before the assembled representatives. He looked old now, his feathers grayed by stress and shame. When he spoke, his voice carried none of its former arrogance. 20 months ago, humanity petitioned this council for full membership. We denied them. We called them too violent, too emotional, too primitive. We were wrong. He paused, and in that silence, everyone heard the weight of his admission. We were catastrophically wrong. Humanity just saved our civilization. They lost thousands of their own people, defending worlds that had rejected them. They deployed technology we didn't know existed to fight an enemy we couldn't defeat. And they did it not because we deserved their help, but because they chose mercy over revenge. He turned to face Daiho directly. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. We judged you unfairly. We underestimated you completely. We owe you a debt we can never fully repay. Daiho stood slowly. His expression was neutral, but Haijin could see the storm of emotions behind it. 20 months of preparation. 20 months of building toward this moment. The Council owes humanity nothing, Daiho said. We didn't help you to create debt. We helped because it was necessary. Because billions of lives mattered more than our wounded pride. Because we chose to be better than our treatment suggested we should be. He pulled out a data tablet. However, if the Council wishes to build a new relationship with humanity, we have prepared terms. Not demands. Not threats. Just conditions for cooperation. Minho's hologram appeared beside Daiho. Humanity proposes a new galactic charter, one based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy. Every species, regardless of age or size, gets an equal voice. Decisions are made by consensus, not by the decree of ancient powers. Technology is shared freely among partners, not extracted from subordinates. Suji's hologram joined them. We propose joint military academies where all species learn from each other. Combined defense forces that protect everyone, not just council worlds. Early warning systems that detect threats before they become catastrophic. We'll share our weapons technology, our tactical knowledge, our defensive innovations. But we do it as equals, not as servants. G1 appeared next. We propose collaborative research initiatives. Humans will share our breakthroughs, but we expect reciprocal sharing from all species. No more mandatory reviews. No more required approvals. Partners trust each other. Finally, Taejun and Yuna joined the growing line of human representatives. We'll return to our work throughout the galaxy. We'll help restore agricultural systems, rebuild medical infrastructure, repair what was lost. But we do it as respected professionals, not as grateful subordinates. Daiho continued. These are our terms. You can accept them, and we'll build something better together. Or you can reject them, and humanity will remain independent, trading with individual species who choose to engage with us as equals. The choice is yours. The council chamber was silent. Every species understood what was being offered. Not just membership, not just cooperation. A complete restructuring of galactic politics, with humanity as an equal founding partner. Rental looked around the chamber, reading the expressions of his fellow counselors. Then he spread his wings wide in a gesture of acceptance. The council unanimously accepts humanity's proposal. We'll draft the new charter immediately. Krell stepped forward. I move that Earth be designated as one of the new charter worlds.